So we know that the circle the wagons concept is that when we find ourselves in the fortunate situation of a partial or complete ownership of a business that has great economics and wonderful prospects, that basically we hang on to those businesses and we don't try to become too cute about is it overvalued or should we buy something else, et cetera, et cetera. Less is more, less activity is more profitable. And so basically going down that path is a great way to go. But that concept kind of skims over the notion of intrinsic value, because intrinsic value basically at the end is the bedrock that we base everything on. The definition of intrinsic value is painfully simple. John Burr Williams came up with it probably close to 100 years ago. It's just the sum of all the cash a business will produce and distribute between its start and end. And that's basically the intrinsic value of a business discounted to present value by some reasonable interest rate. So the definition is really simple. Figuring it out is far from simple. And trying to figure out what a business might produce 5 years or 10 years or 15 years from now becomes somewhat complicated. And if you look at a business like Berkshire Hathaway that most of us are familiar with, both Warren and Charlie have commented that they both have an idea about the intrinsic value of Berkshire. And if they were both to write down that number or range of numbers, they would not be identical. They would be somewhat different in that total. Warren has also said, and what Berkshire has also done, is they have engaged in buybacks of the stock at prices that they believe is well below intrinsic value. So I think recently they were willing to buy back shares at 1.2x of book value, tangible book value. And both Buffett and Munger have commented that as Berkshire has become more of a collection of wholly owned businesses, tangible book value becomes less of a valid metric to value Berkshire. So to give you an example, when they bought See's Candy, they paid more than 3 times book value for See's. And so if you were valuing Berkshire at like 1.2 times book, you would basically undervalue a business like See's. If you look at a business like Burlington Northern Railway, and you looked at it from a replacement cost point of view, to replace that railroad, going transcontinental, et cetera, probably couldn't be done. But even if you were somehow able to do it, it would exceed, in my opinion, the market cap of Berkshire, probably north of 700, 800 billion, might be over $1 trillion to replicate that railroad. And so how would you value Burlington Northern? If you valued it at those numbers, that might be overstated because they don't have an earnings power that would correlate with that type of a book value. So for many reasons, book value is an inadequate measure. I also feel that when Buffett and Munger say that they have a range of the intrinsic value of Berkshire in their mind, I think what they are thinking about is very likely to be a number less than 2 times book value. And if you look at Berkshire Hathaway today, for example, it trades at approximately 1.5 times book value. Current valuation is about 1.5 times. And I would say they would both consider it probably optimistic to value Berkshire 2 times book value. As I thought about this, what I realized is that when you look at Berkshire Hathaway's past, what you find is that there have been times in the past when Berkshire has been very willing to issue stock. They issued stock to buy Dexter Shoes, which Warren would like to forget about. They issued stock to buy Gen Re. They also issued stock to buy Burlington Northern. So there were times when, even though they are reluctant to issue stock, they were very willing to issue stock to get these transactions done. When you look at Buffett himself, he's never bought or sold a share of Berkshire. In the entire almost 60 years of running Berkshire, his ownership has stayed static. So even when the price has gone down a lot, he hasn't bought anything. And when Berkshire has gotten into what some might consider euphoric pricing, he hasn't sold anything. So even though Berkshire Hathaway has engaged in transactions periodically in terms of issuing shares and buying back shares, Warren Buffett himself has never done that. So when I think about this notion of intrinsic value, and you think about this notion that Warren and Charlie put forth that probably the value of Berkshire is less than 2 times book value, I don't think that fully captures things. So if we, for example, if we go back, let's say we go back to 1990, 34 years back, stock was trading at that time at approximately $4,000 a share. And if you multiplied by 1.5 million shares, which is approximately what they had outstanding then and even now, it had a $6 billion market cap at the time. And book value was probably some fraction of that, maybe might be 3 or 4 billion. If you were to come up then and say, okay, we'll apply this kind of 2 times of book value multiple as a shorthand for intrinsic value, you would end up with some number less than $8,000 a share, maybe $6,000 a share or something. It'd be some number not that far off from $4,000 market price. But we know clearly, since we are in the future, in 1990, we couldn't see it because we couldn't see the future cash flow stream, right? If we step into the future and we look at the future cash flow streams from 1990 to 2024, and then you discount all of that back, what you would end up with is a number that would be much higher than even $10,000 or $20,000 a share. You would end up with a number of intrinsic value that would be significantly above numbers that Warren and Charlie put forth as the likely intrinsic value. What is the intrinsic value of Berkshire, right? Is it using a metric like Warren and Charlie tell us to use, which is, some premium to book? Or is it something which is more where you actually run some assumptions on future cash flows and then try to discount back? And in my simplistic way of thinking about it, I think there might be two different intrinsic values, two different ways to describe intrinsic value. And those two different ways to describe intrinsic value might be correlating to the two different ways Warren Buffett deals with Berkshire stock. He deals with Berkshire stock one way when Berkshire is either buying businesses or buying back shares. There is some activity with Berkshire shares that goes on in that realm. And then we look at the second realm, which is his own ownership of Berkshire Hathaway, which never changes, absolutely static, other than giving money away to charity and so on. He's basically never entertained the notion of selling a share. And he said that basically he will, in the future as well, never sell a share. In my opinion, Warren, the individual, had a far better grasp on the intrinsic value of Berkshire Hathaway than Berkshire Hathaway, the company, did. I think Warren Buffett, the individual, understood better what the value of Berkshire was. So in 1990, at the 4,000 per share, they may have been willing to issue shares to buy businesses. But then, or even now, he's not willing to sell the stock at those prices. When I look at my own example, I run Pabrai Investment Funds, which has wonderful business economics. It's a great business. I haven't really talked very much about the economics of the general partner of Pabrai Funds. But I would just say this, that in 25 years of running Pabrai Funds, our pre-tax margin is about 88%. So the fees that Pabrai Funds earns and has earned over the last 25 years, 88% is operating income. It's a great business, better than Apple. Very nice. No complaints about life. Okay. People have approached me from time to time to buy a portion of the general partner. Even though I've never shared financials with them, they were very eager to buy an interest in the general partner. And it didn't even take me 5 seconds to, ignore all those offers and turn them down. And the reason was pretty simple, is that, if I were to try to calculate what is the intrinsic value of the general partner of Pabrai Funds, I don't know what that value is. I just know that there's a range. There's probably a pretty wide range on that. And at the upper end of that wide range could be some spectacular numbers, right? I mean, and I don't know which way it'll fall in the sense of at the top end or the bottom end. So one is that if Warren has ownership of Berkshire Hathaway and understands the business as well as he does, clearly he sees all the great wide, deep moat on Berkshire and wants to stay there. And same with Charlie Munger, more than 90% of net worth in Berkshire Hathaway. I would say there are two ways to think about intrinsic value. There's a standard way to think of intrinsic value. And then I would say there's another way, which is owner intrinsic value, or the owner's definition of intrinsic value. The owner's definition of intrinsic value is not just this maybe more broader look at the business over a much longer period. It also has intangibles related to, for example, having control, right? I mean, one of the things I realized is that the moment I sold some portion of the general partner, there would be a clock on the business, because whoever bought that stake at some point would want to monetize it. And those types of concepts were not of interest to me. And so there's an aspect of intrinsic value which relates to future cash flows in both definitions. And there's an aspect of it that deals with the intangibles of these intangibles that come with the ownership. So when you go back to the notion of circling the wagons, right? So circling the wagons, basically, like I said, it skimmed over the notion of intrinsic value. It just said that, hey, you have a great business, you just hold on to it and don't ask too many questions. But if we were to ask some questions, we would say, no, but every business has a finite value, etc. The reality is that we need to only get rich once. We don't need to get rich multiple times. In fact, you don't want to go back to go, as Charlie says. Once you get there, you don't want to go back to go. And the second is that you really, for the most part, only need to be right once. So you might make 100 investments in stocks, and it's possible that even 90+% of them don't work, but some could work so spectacularly that they could make your overall portfolio look great. Just, I think last couple of days, the Financial Times noted that Warren Buffett in the Berkshire portfolio has bought and sold like 65 companies, 65 stocks, which is a lot. We don't think of Warren as a trader, and they said the average holding period of the stocks that he owned was like a little over 4 years. Todd and Ted under him, the FT reported that they also had pretty large number of trades, and their average holding period was less than 3 years. And so, a large error rate is pretty normal in this business. Finding the holy grail of the great compounders is few and far between. But basically this particular notion of intrinsic value, I think, is worth paying attention to, especially the notion of owner intrinsic value. And I think the notion of owner intrinsic value can give us more conviction to hold on rather than just basing it on, oh, it's a great business. Because when you look at a great business, so if I take the example of Starbucks more recently, Starbucks was taken out back and shot in the last few days, chopped liver. And so is it a business that has secular negative issues in the future? Or is it a business that had a speed bump? Right? And these things become hard to answer. They become hard to answer these in real time. In the fullness of time, we will understand whether it was a speed bump or something more than a speed bump. So if we were to look at a business like Starbucks and analyze every speed bump, it would become really hard to be able to hold that business for a long time.
Now you know that identifying a stock's intrinsic value is never exact science, because investors usually end up with a broad range of possible valuations instead of one precise number. Pabrai says this was also true for Warren Buffett when valuing Berkshire Hathaway over the years. However, Buffett had a major advantage because he was the owner and operator of the business, giving him deeper insight into the company's true earnings power and future potential. Also, Pabrai highlights that control and inside understanding can help investors get much closer to intrinsic value, something outside shareholders can rarely achieve with complete accuracy.